Hello, I'm Ariam, and this is my vlog for the first week of the magical readathon of September 2025, the autumn equinox of 2025. So this readathon, if you don't know, basically you create characters and they go to magic school and they take classes and according to whatever degree they're getting, and you read books according to the classes they're taking. So in the autumn equinox, you have 3 possible levels of classes you can take according to the degree they're getting. In the spring equinox, they just take you just read 1 book for every class, and in the autumn equinox, you read between 1 and 3 books according to how many classes they have to take for that subject. So I have 2 characters. I have Estella, who is in her last semester of learning to be a healer and an archmage. She is doing double degree. And I have Ori, who is in his last semester of learning to be a beastmaster, which is basically a veterinarian. And I've decided to start 3 books at once because of the way the holds came in from the library. So far I've started 2 out of those 3. So I started, so far this morning, it's the 1st of September, The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older, and What If 2 by Randall Munro. So The Mimicking of Known Successes is, I was very surprised to learn this, but it is a novella. It is a science fiction mystery. As compared to Sherlock Holmes, that so far I have not felt at all any Sherlock Holmes vibes, except the fact that they use gaslights, which is not at all enough of a vibe, in my opinion. But I have been super enjoying it so far. I am 45 pages into it. I'm on chapter 5. It's a novella, so it's only 162 pages. And I also discovered this the first in the series, which is not great. But oh well. I am loving it. So the mystery is centered around, so this takes place in Jupiter. Humanity has abandoned Earth. There seems to have been some sort of mass extinction event. So they've abandoned Earth and they've come to Jupiter centuries ago, and they've just built platforms there to live on. And this guy went to a very remote platform and disappeared. And we're following a detective and the main character, her friend, who works in the university, and he works in the same department that this guy who disappeared worked in, so he's helping her. And I don't know, I just love it. I don't have much to say. The characters, everything's just okay, but there's something about this book that's just making me love it. Okay, and then the next book is What If 2 by Randall Munro. So I got into this in around 8th or 9th grade, which is, what is this? This is the XKCD comics, which Randall Munro is a former engineer physicist, and he makes like little silly science comics on the internet. And so when people would start sending him questions, so he wrote like silly questions. So he wrote 1 book called What If, which I read in 9th grade. And then this is the second book, What If 2. 2 as in the number 2. And it's really, really nice. So it's divided into short questions where he just gives like little silly comic answers. Oh, a lot of them are, would I survive X, blah, 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 X, Y, Z, whatever. And he's like, no. But other questions, but the main bulk of the book is obviously the questions where he really gets into answers. And they're really fun because let's say someone asks, how long would it take to drive to the edge of the universe if the universe stops expanding now? And so he could just give the time, right? He could just calculate the amount of time, but he also really gets into it. How much gas would you need? How many snacks? What would you do for entertainment on this trip? And so it makes it really fun. And it mostly isn't comics, but he does add some little comics in there, and I love it. I love that book. So I'm 43 pages into that. And the next book that I'm planning on starting is Unseen Magic by Emily Lloyd Jones. And this is a bit of an interesting one because I read 1 book by Emily Lloyd Jones, which was like upper YA, secondary world kind of dark fantasy. And this one is middle grade, and I believe it's more lower middle grade. And it's very light. And I think it's more magical realism, so it's going to be interesting to see. But I did open it, and it does have a map. So, it's already won. Unless it doesn't win. But yeah, I am a bit nervous about it, if you can't tell. Hello, it is the morning of September 2nd, and I do have some updates for you. So I did read, I started Unseen Magic by Emily Lloyd Jones yesterday. I read 44 pages of it. And I am enjoying it more than expected. It is my least favorite kind of middle grade, like in the style that it's written in, which is like, it's very reflective style, like thinking about itself, and that is my least favorite kind of middle grade style, partially because when I read middle grade I wanted to read more straight, and also partially because a lot of the times it can get moralistic in or something like that. But I am so far enjoying it. So we are following our main character, who's around 11 or 12, something like that. She has anxiety, and for the first 9 years of her life, she moved around a lot. But then they moved to this town where her aunt and cousin live, and this town is magical. It's very much it's more magic realism. Like, it's very much more to the side of that than like outright fantasy. But let's turn off the lights outside. We don't need them. But yeah, and so far it's been very slice of life. The only thing that has a hint of like what might happen in the rest of the book is that apparently this town, years and years before, used to be situated a little to the west, and then the magic moved and it used to be magical there, and then the magic moved and the people just came and rebuilt the town where in this new place. But so far it's just been very slice of life, and I've been enjoying it. And then today and yesterday I did read more of What If 2 by Randall Munroe. I'm still enjoying it, but I don't really have like anything else to say. I feel like in nonfiction books you don't really have anything to update, especially one like this where it's just questions and answers. But in general, nonfiction books, like the way it starts off is the way it's going to continue. Nonfiction books are like, they're very set how they're written, you know, from the beginning. They're written the same way. Like, there's no plot to develop or anything. So, unless you have, well, there are books where it was like Eric Larson or whatever, but yeah. So I'm just going to update you either when I finish it or at the end of the week how many pages I read, whichever came first. Okay, comes. And then today I did read a bunch more of The Mimicking of Known Successes by Malka Older. So this one is, I got to page 85, so I read another 40 pages, and I am really enjoying it. It is definitely the slowest out of all the books, but that's just because it's an adult book. It's not in itself slow. And yeah, like, I don't know why I'm enjoying it so much, because there are very obvious flaws. Like, I'm reading it, I'm thinking, I shouldn't be enjoying this part, but I am. So what's very interesting about this book is, so it's a mystery, and we have a detective. Like, she's literally, that's her job, to be a detective. She's not even an amateur detective or anything. But except for the prologue where they show us the mystery, we are following from the perspective of her friend, the guy who disappeared. As I said, he worked in the same place where her friend works, so she goes to him. So we're actually following from the perspective of her friend. So we're not really getting a lot of, it's not really the classic mystery so much. I guess this is why people compared it to Sherlock Holmes. I still disagree, because the Sherlock Holmes stories are from the perspective of John Watson. I still disagree. This has a very different vibe to Sherlock Holmes, but I can understand that. This is from the perspective of her friend, what's his name, Patey or something like that. And the Sherlock Holmes stories were from the perspective of John Watson, but they are different because they're just very different vibes. But yeah, because it's from the perspective of her friend, who very much is not a detective, he's intelligent, so he can, like, put together things that are going on, but he's not a detective. This is not his job, so we're not getting, like, the usual way a detective story is built, I would say, where we're, like, they put the clues together. It's just like, I'm going around my life, and I'm helping out my friend, and this is what she said, and this is what she wants to do next, and I'm just going to help her. And it's very introspective. Like, they are not very good friends anymore. They used to be very good friends when they were in university together, but that was years and years and years ago. And now they rarely see each other, and suddenly she's coming to stay at him, and he's having, like, all these thoughts about, you know, what the relationship was, who they were then, what they are as adults. Like, I think that's the most interesting part of the book, honestly. Like, like the mystery, I'm not the biggest mystery fan. I enjoy them, but I'm not the biggest mystery fan. So while I like it, the real thing that's holding my attention here is just him kind of figuring out this relationship where he's like, where at the beginning we see he's expecting it to be, he knows it's not, he knows logically it's not going to be the same as it was when they were in university together, but on some level he's expecting it to be that way. And then as they talk more, he like is learning more about who his friend is as an adult, and again he's also obviously changed, and like how now that they're adults, how they fit together and stuff like that. However, an addendum to this is that there seems to be a romance developing, and I am not enjoying it at all. It's gagging me, gag-worthy in the bad way. But yeah, those are all the updates I have for right now. Oh wait, I keep on forgetting to say what the actual prompts are for these books. So for What If 2, the class that, so these are all for my character Stella. I have not started any of Reed's books yet. So, but for What If 2, the class is the magic of primes, and the prompt was to read a book with a prime number of letters in the title. I counted 2 as a letter, so it comes out 7 letters, which is a prime, number. Then I have the mimicking of known successes. The class for this is Liquid Sunlight, and the prompt was to have a sun on the cover. And this may or may not have a sun on the cover, but I was told that it looks like it kind of, there's this kind of diagram of a solar system on it. It seems that the sun may be there, so we are counting that as a sun on the cover. And then finally, for Unseen Magic, the class was Charm Luck, and the prompt was to roll 6-sided dice, and whatever number comes out to read according to that amount of pages. Like if it comes out of 1, to read between 1 and 100 and 199 pages. So I rolled a 3. Very lucky, because I believe the ideal number of pages for a book is between 350 to 390 pages, something like that. So very ideal for me. I'm very glad I rolled a 3. Hi, it is September 3rd. I have not read hardly anything today. I've read like 24 pages in Unseen Magic, and yesterday I read 40 pages, so I'm just going to update you in that. And yeah, so I'm really liking this book. It's kind of a book I wish that I had in the past. I think it would have been great for me to have had it in the past. We'll see how it continues to go, though. And right now, what I read today is Where the Plot Started. And what's very unexpected to me is that we actually have 2 plots starting. So I actually wasn't sure if this was going, like I was reading it, I was like, maybe this is just going to be a slice of life book. I would be totally fine with that. Like, I would even like that. But now we have 2 plots starting. We have this monster thing that's appeared that our main characters know about. And then we suddenly got the POV of a raven who encounters something that seems like a very different type of monster. Like, the ones that our characters encounter seems like, oh, could be dangerous, but it's also kind of silly. And the one that the raven encounters is like, yeah, that scared me. The one, I cannot say what happened in the scene because it would be spoilers, but yeah, it scared me. Also, like, thinking about anxiety, so not for the Readathon, I'm listening to Aru Shah and the Song of Death, which is part of the Pandava series by Roshni Chokshi. This is the second time I'm reading it. First time I read it with my eyes. But what do I want to say? Oh yeah. So our main character, Aru Shah, I was kind of, because I'm currently reading and they're both middle grade books, I was kind of comparing her to our main character in this book, Finn. And they're very different. But then I realized Aru Shah's friend in the series, Minnie, also has anxiety, and I didn't really realize, I did realize, but like, I didn't really think in words, you know, how great it is that we can see Minnie having anxiety and still being a hero. You know, like, she's not the main character of the series, so it's not as noticeable as it is in this one because we're not getting stuff from her perspective, but just that she does have anxiety, and it doesn't go away, you know? She does get a little better during the series, but she definitely still has anxiety, and she freaks out about stuff, and because it's a silly series, it's sometimes kind of made fun of. Not not made fun of, that's not the phrase I'm looking for. It's sometimes seen in a silly way, through silly lens, you know, instead of like super serious lens, because everything in the series is pretty much seen at least once through silly lens, but also sometimes it's just like, yeah. And I do feel like there are points where we could have seen Minnie's anxiety through more serious lens, and that we should have even. But yeah, I think it's great that we get to like see kids who have a lot of anxiety being heroes. And I wonder what's going to happen in this book with Finn, because her anxiety is honestly debilitating. Like Minnie's, she has a ton of anxiety, but if she's not like, but her anxiety is mostly about situations that she can avoid. I mean, it's not great. Yeah, she's in real life, she probably avoids a lot more than we see her in the series. They just don't spend a lot of time in the real world in the series, like, and it's not great. So, yeah, but so Finn's anxiety is even more debilitating than Minnie's, because it's in any situation. You know, she's just terrified of talking to people, answering the door, stuff like that. And so I'm just really curious to see where we go with this arc of her anxiety. Hi, hello. It's still September 3rd, around 4.5 hours later. And I am now 134 pages into. Sorry. My computer's doing something annoying. Why won't it make this message go away? Thank you. Okay, and I'm 134 pages into Unseen Magic, 131 pages into What If 2, and 106 pages into The Mimicking of Known Successes. So let's talk about them in that order. So I guess I don't really have anything to add right now about Unseen Magic, except that the plot just moved in a way that I didn't expect, and I'm not sure what to think. I'm not sure if my theory is right or the theory of our main character is right. And there was a town council meeting. I'm really loving the slice of life in here. Like her description of like her going to the town council meeting and everything. And like it was cute. It was fun. It was nice. And it really expanded on her character as well, which, you know, is obviously part of the reason it was cute. It was fun. It was nice. Then we have What If 2. I said I wasn't going to update you anymore about it, but I do want to say one thing. He was writing when he writes really, really big numbers, they're hard to understand. So he always has like this graph, you know, like some sort of graph. So he was talking about building a huge skyscraper. So every time he would like add more to the skyscraper, and he would like he would draw like the picture of how tall that would be. A skyscraper with 1 billion floors. Then there was one where they were talking about $2 undecillion, and he was talking about how much money that is. So he had like this graph of $2 undecillion, and then he would be like, and this is this much money, and this is this much money. So you could see, like, because when you get to that amount of numbers, it's really hard to comprehend. And so that was just like so helpful, and I love that he does it. And then we have The Mimicking of Known Successes. And here is where things get less positive, because despite being 60 pages away from the end, I am thinking about DNFing this. I know, I was so positive about it before. However, I've got off it. Like, yeah, as I said, I was having fun. I was having fun with the vibes. I was having fun with the characters. The mystery was alright, but it just continued in the exact same way. It just been continuing in the exact same way. By the way, the main character is a woman. I was looking at reviews and I realized that she's a woman. I just assumed she was a man. She's never referred to by any pronouns, but apparently she's a woman. But it's just continuing the exact same way, and it's getting tiring. Like, there's no added character development now. Like, and even the relationship, like, I'm not finding the relationship development fun, because it's a stupid romance that nobody needed. But but it stopped developing too. It just like, as I said, it's very introspective, but there's a point where it's too introspective. You need to make something happen. Like we need the development of something, and we need some character development, we need relationship development, we need something to happen. And the mystery also, as well, as I said, it wasn't like my favorite mystery ever at any point, but I was fine with it. But like at this point, also the character development isn't happening. It was never happening. Also, the relationship development has stopped. And the mystery has gotten to a point. It's been like this throughout the whole book. I don't know if I feel it stronger now because the other stuff have stopped, because the relationship development stopped, and because I'm more into the book, and I'm like, a lot of the book was the setup of these two characters, of introducing us to these two characters. So, which is fine. Like, that's how books work, yeah? But that stopped because we're 106 pages in now. It's time for it to stop. And the relationship isn't developing anywhere. And so I'm not sure if I'm feeling that the mystery is just going in circles and not doing anything more because of the other elements not existing, or it's because it's also, it was introducing us to the mystery, kind of, and there were stuff happening, yeah? And then at this point, it's just like, Platy is figuring out things in her head, and this has been annoying the whole book. This has been one of those flaws that I mentioned earlier, the whole book, but it's really standing out to me now when there's nothing else to distract me from it, and I'm like, the vibes are really enjoyable, but like, at some point you can't live just on vibes, yeah? So what is the flaw of, and I couldn't really, the reason I didn't say it before was that I was having a hard time articulating it, but now I can articulate it. And that is that Platy, our narrator, she will like figure stuff out about the mystery, and she won't tell us what she figured out. And it's not at all the same as when you're reading a book by like, where the narrator is just like narrating what the detective is doing, whether that is just like the normal third person voice, or it's like the character's friend, like Watson, narrating Sherlock Holmes, because this is one of the differences that I was saying, that it really does not feel like Sherlock Holmes to me, because Watson will tell us when he figures out something. Like, he doesn't figure out stuff a lot in the beginning, but as the books go on, he starts figuring out more and more stuff, and he'll tell us, He'll be like, oh, I just figured this out. So you know what? I'm going to go do this impulsive thing. Really thinking about the hand of the basketballs in that one. But he tells us, and Platy, she just doesn't tell us. She'll be like, oh, I figured it out. So I ran off to meet Masa. And I'm like, and you're like figuring out what she was thinking of while she's like doing her actions. And maybe other people like that. People who really, really love mysteries and are in them for figuring out the mystery, Which is already a subgenre of people who love mysteries, because not everybody who loves mysteries is loving them for the figuring out of the mystery. And I enjoy figuring out a mystery, but this kind of narration style where she's not telling us anything, besides being kind of frustrating, it is frustrating, it's so boring, Like, we don't really get to experience the elation of figuring out a clue along with her. We're trying to kind of run behind her, which is like what she's doing with Masa. She's running behind Masa, and so we are feeling the frustration. So now I'm wondering if the author did that on purpose, so we can I was wondering this before too as well, we can feel with Platy what Platy feels about Masa, the frustration and of being left behind. However, Platy is actually, I'm not even sure if that's how you pronounce her name, I'm just going to continue pronouncing it Platy. Platy is actually experiencing what's going on. So she's aboard. I'm bored. So yeah, I don't know if I'm going to DNF this or not. I only have 60 pages left. But unless the story like incredibly turns around, I do not see myself continuing the series. I don't really see a way actually in which the story could turn around where I see myself continuing the series, unless like it turns amazing and I look up reviews and they're all like, oh, I wasn't sure whether to continue with the second book, but I did. And I loved it so much. It was so much better than the first one. Yeah. I'm also wondering if Masa is supposed to be autistic. Like, I've been wondering this from the very beginning, but they haven't said anything. And it feels very odd to me that they wouldn't say anything because this is happening in the future. And while the technology in some ways is behind ours because of the specific limitations of living on Jupiter, for instance, they don't have cell phones. They only have landline telephones, and they use them rarely because storms interrupt them so much and stuff like that. They are a futuristic society, and we know that they have a lot of data on scientific stuff, and they're still using and they still have a ton of futuristic scientific stuff. So I don't see. So I would like. So I'm wondering if there's going to be like a future line where it says like something about how like they did away with psychology because it's not real science. Let's be honest, it's not real science, or something like that. Because yeah, it's weird to me otherwise if they don't mention it in a science fiction that was published pretty recently, you know. And the way that Platy is describing her does come off as extremely autistic, as in she is missing very obvious. Masa is missing very obvious social cues. Yeah, I guess that's all I have to say right now. A lot I have to say, apparently. Hi, it's September 4th, and I did read more of all of my books, so I want to talk about The Mimicking of No Successes, because I read 15 more pages of that this morning, and I enjoyed it. Now, I think a few things are going on. One, yesterday I was super tired, and I did think of that yesterday, but I was also thinking I was reading Unseen Magic, and I was gobbling it up. But there is also the factor that The Mimicking of Known Successes is definitely the slowest, hardest one of my books to read right now. Like, What If 2 does definitely take some brain power, because sometimes there are some sentences that I'm going to have to read over because I don't understand exactly what he meant about the science. But it's actually The Mimicking of Known Successes that does take the most brain power. So that could definitely be a factor. But I do think that what I said about it still stands. And also, I don't know, it's The Mimicking of No Successes has such a vibe of the mornings. Like, right now the mornings are just chilly, but there's light out, and The Mimicking of No Successes really has that vibe. So, yeah. So I did enjoy what I read, and the plot definitely, like, it picked up again. We went right into, like, some fight scenes. Not the best written fight scenes, but we did go into a fight scene. So yeah, I don't know, it's 15 pages, how much more can I say? And then I get to page 189, I think, of Unseen Magic. Still enjoying it. I forgot to mention that this has been in my head for a while, that it's such fall vibes, which is making me very happy. It's like, it's just, you know, chilly in the evening and morning, but it's warm out in the middle of the day. There's sunlight, and there's also a cool breeze. You know, it's just such fall vibes. So yeah, that's good for this particular readathon. Even though I generally am not the kind of person who like reads stuff for the vibes of the seasons. And then I did read more of What If 2. I'm also on page something like 189, something like that. Not sure exactly, maybe 188. I think 186. Yeah, on page 186 of it. And like I said, I don't really have anything else to update. Still really enjoying it. Learned a lot about matches and dinosaurs. Or rather, the materials in matches and the materials which dinosaurs became. So, yeah. Hi, it's September 5th, and I did read some more of What If 2 today, and I also started A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. Now, this is a double prompt because it is also for the order, it's also the Order of the Crescent Book Club book. Each guild gets, of the 4 guilds, gets to vote on a book club book. And my guild, luckily, which was Order of the Crescent, which is Reed's guild actually, Estella is in House of the Arcane. But they voted on Sorcerer Comes to Call, and I'm glad. But I am also using it for an Estella prompt, which is Inscription O, which is give an author, no, sorry, Restoration D, which is give an author a second chance. And the reason it's giving an author a second chance is because so far I read 2 of T. Kingfisher's books. One was a horror book, and I loved it. I thought it was amazing, one of the best horror books I've ever read, not that I've read that many. And the other was a fantasy book, and I didn't really like it. I was like, it's okay, but I'm not going to look, but while I'm looking at T. Kingfisher books, yeah, I'm definitely going to read her horror, but I'll probably ignore her fantasy. And so that, and A Sorceress Comes to Call is a fantasy book. And pretty much all I knew about it until I started reading it is that it's a fantasy and it's a retelling of some fairy tale. Now I'm an hour and 22 minutes into it. And yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I enjoyed Sword Heart, I think, which is a fantasy book I read. Not as much as I enjoyed the Mushroom horror book, but that's okay. There are some things that are a bit weird. So I've discovered while reading it that it's a retelling of the Goose Girl, but it's an extremely loose retelling. And honestly, so far, I think you could say that it's not, like, okay, the main thing of it in that it's a retelling is that there's the horse Falada, right? Who always follows our main character, the Goose Girl, and who helps her be safe. And something happens with Falada in this book that, like, I can't say because it would be spoilers, but that gave me the shivers, specifically because it's Falada. That wouldn't give me the shivers the same way if it just been, like, a horse that this girl really loved. Other than Falada, it's really nothing like the Goose Girl at all so far. So I am wondering what will happen because they did just move to a castle. But yeah, it's very much about abuse. Yes, our main character's mother is extremely abusive and controlling. And so everything kind of flipped on its head, right? So our main character's mother is abusive. She's not, like, a loving mother or anything. And then in the castle, well, I'm not sure because her mom goes to marry this guy and she tells the daughter, who's 14, to lie and say she's 17 and that they're looking for a husband for her, because she just wants her daughter to marry rich so she'll have more money. Sorry. And then his sister, like, immediately notices the abuse, and she's like, what's up? I need to get down to the bottom of this. And that's where I am right now. The abuse is done really well. It is done with magic, but it doesn't make it any less horrifying, but it also doesn't make it any more horrifying. It sounds really real. And I think one of the reasons for this is that because the main character is kept extremely isolated because of the abuse, and also because she's being abused, and so she's, like, constantly looking at her mom to make sure she doesn't mess up, because otherwise, bad things will happen to her. And her reaction to that, of when she speaks to people, is just extremely realistic. Like, the way that and it reminds me of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine in a way, and I will explain in a minute, but the way that she, like, is constantly, like, thinking over how to speak to people, and also knowing she's coming across as extremely odd, and realizing some of the reasons why she's coming across as extremely odd, but not all of them. is very realistic. And that's why I want to talk about Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine together with this. Because Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine is an amazing book. It's a realistic fiction which follows a woman, and this woman has PTSD. I cannot tell you why because it's a spoiler, but she has, which sounds bad, but it's not. It's an amazing book. I really, really think the focus is really not on why she has PTSD. It's on her trying to live with this PTSD and this association. And it's an amazing book. However, the thing about this book is we are not told she has PTSD until she has PTSD until the very end, basically. And it's very much because we're seeing her after the events which led to her having CPTSD have happened, and she's not telling us about it because she's disassociated from them. So, and I have mentioned before, not on this channel, but in real life, that my opinion is that CPTSD and autism signs are often confused in children because they are extremely similar when you have a highly intelligent child. And obviously children with trauma are not just going to go out and say, this is the trauma I have, the same way that adults will, Adults are probably more willing to tell their trauma. And I have problems with the way autism is diagnosed anyways, but that's neither here nor there, it's not connected. But as I said, there are many symptoms of CPTSD that present very similarly to symptoms of highly functioning autism in children or even in adults. And like I said, and I think you can already hear it from what I'm saying, she's coming off extremely odd and she knows that she's not quite sure how to speak to people, and the same thing for Eleanor Oliphant. And the thing about Eleanor Oliphant is I think a lot of people started reading this and they saw that and they believed that she had autism. I did not. I kind of realized that it was CPTSD pretty early on, but I totally understand why people were thinking that she's autistic. And then I saw a lot of reviews getting mad at it of like, this isn't how autism really looks. I was like, no, because at the end of the book, because as you read on, you realize more and more, oh, this isn't not autism, this is CPTSD. And a lot of reviews, this isn't how autism really looks, this isn't how autistic people react to trauma. And like, first of all, not every person reacts to trauma the same way. Trauma is extremely complicated, but especially if you have a smaller demographic, we're already talking about. So yeah, but also, yeah, she's not supposed to be autistic. She's supposed to have CPTSD. And so it really annoys me when I see people complaining about that because, like, yeah, you're right. That's not how autism presents. That's how CPTSD presents. So anyways, I'm just saying, same thing in A Sorceress Comes to Call. I really hope I do not see people complaining about her having or autism being presented wrong when it's very clear that she has CPTSD, and that's where this is coming from. However, in this book, it is explicitly said that she has CPTSD, and this is the reason why she's doing this. So, well, it's not said that she's CPTSD. Obviously, it's a fantasy book, and she doesn't really know what's going on. It's said that but it's presented that it's directly from the abuse she's experienced, unlike in Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, where we start off from a place in Eleanor's brain where she is completely disassociated from what she experienced. Hello, it is the 6th of September, so it's the end of the week, and I'm going to tell you what I read on Shaft. So, first of all, I finished The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I started this last Shabbos, and I got halfway through, which I totally forgot, and I really should have remembered, but basically you can buy a scroll of continuation, which lets you finish books that you started before the readathon and during the readathon and count them for the readathon. So I am counting this. This is for Ori's class of the baby dragons. And the prompt for that was a debut book. So this is a debut book. And this book, did I tell you what it's about? No, I did not. This book is a mystery where and it's a speculative mystery. So our main character wakes up each day in the body of a different guest at this party. And the daughter of the house is murdered at the end of the day at this party, and he has to figure out who did it so that he can escape. It's an extremely twisty, turny mystery, and I enjoyed the very majority of it. The last 50 pages, the ending, I didn't enjoy, and the more I think about it, I'm more disappointed. They were definitely the pages where you could tell it was a debut, and which is frustrating to me because all of this amazing. This part not amazing. So I really liked the twisty turny parts of it. I liked how our character. One of my favorite parts was our character wakes up every day in the body of someone else, which includes their mind. So every day his personality slightly changes, but he still has kind of his original personality and goals, but like he does have this very logical goal set mind that you can tell that's always there behind the minds of the other characters, but but the thing is, sometimes he's in a body where that really works for him, it even enhances it, but other times he's in a body where where it's the opposite. They're not goals that they're not logical, and he's struggling incredibly. And it's very funny watching him look at other characters who he is in their body and be like, oh, he has a mind that goes through all the emotions. He has a mind that gets bored easily. I would hate to be in a mind like that. I'm like, yeah, that's my mind. But yeah, I thought that part was incredibly well done. That was absolutely my favorite part of the book. And in general, the way that the days worked in here, the way he went between the bodies, great. All of that was great. The ending, though, disappointed me on a lot of levels. One of the levels that disappointed me on was who the villain turned out to be, what their motive was, is the motive that I find the most boring in murder mysteries, so that's a neat thing, and then there was something that should have been a little expanded upon because it was a plot hole basically. And then the other main thing that really I didn't like about the ending, the main thing that disappointed me besides the motive, is that like this book is 500 pages, okay? And that works for this book because you're following along with the character, figuring out these clues, and you're like slowly getting it. At the very end, the last 50 pages, suddenly a bunch of things are thrown upon us. Technically I don't have a problem with this. And the author wrote that he was inspired by Agatha Christie mysteries, and a lot of Golden Age mysteries, whether Agatha Christie or not, do have this thing of just at the end, just throwing everything out. I think a lot of people say about the Poirot books where he's like at the end he just tells everything. And a lot of Golden Age mysteries are like that, where they build up the mystery until the end, and then at the very end they throw everything out. Now, the thing about these mysteries, though, is that they're between 200 and 300 pages, so it works for them. This is 500 pages, where we spent 450 pages following the character as he slowly takes clues. And so just to have, a bunch of stuff that aren't really connected to the clues we gathered thrown at us suddenly was incredibly disappointing. But I will definitely be reading more Stuart Turton books in the future if I can find them because, yeah, 450 pages of this, I loved. I absolutely loved. It was only the last 50 pages that they super disappointed me, and part of the reason why they disappointed me so much was because of how good the previous 450 pages were. Then, for Estella, again, you'll see that a lot of the books I'm reading are for Estella simply because she has more stuff, more classes that she needs to do. But I am rereading Arrow's Flight. So this is for Inscription Q. The prompt is, so the class is archiving, and the prompt is a vertical title on the spine, and that's definitely what we have. I'm not sure what vertical is meant. I mean, it's always going to be in some way vertical if it's on the spine, so I'm not entirely sure what is meant by that, but this is definitely, cover is terrible. So this is a reread for me, and this is the second in the series. I did not tell you about this either. I just filmed the August TBR on Friday, so I'm a little confused about what I said or not. But this is the continuation of Arrows of the Queen. Is the second in the trilogy, which this has a much better cover, even though I still have problems with it. But at least in this one, Talia and Roland look as they're described in the books. I hate Roland's tale, though. But at least they look as they're described in the books, even though the background doesn't fit the books. In this one, the background fit what happened in the book, but Talia just does not look, her clothes are all wrong as well. Roland's saddles and stuff is all wrong as well. Anyways, so they happen in this world, in this country called Valdemar, where there are heralds. And heralds are chosen by these companions who are very, very special magical horses. And they basically, wow, it had a very good description in this book. Let me see if I can find it. The heralds served many functions. They were administrative overseers, dispensers of justice, information gatherers, even temporary military advisors, answerable only to the monarch and their own circle of peers. Okay, so yeah, basically the main thing they do is they go ride circuits. That is, they and their companions go and they go around a certain area for a year or to 2 years, depending on how far away it is from the capital. And they basically act as judges, etc., whatever, exactly what the book said. And so the first book sees our main character, Talia, getting chosen to be a herald. She grew up in a cult. She doesn't really understand what it means. So this is basically a training montage. Plus there is some plot that is established for the further books. But Mercedes LeKay books, the plot happens very slowly, okay? And it's mainly about her, like, getting out of that abuse mindset because she was abused. She was in a cult. This is when she becomes an intern. So that means that she goes out with someone who's already a full herald and rides a circuit together with this person. So in this book, I know it's a reread for me, so I already know more about it. So she basically is, again, there's plot happening, but it's very, very behind the scenes. Like, if you read this book without knowing already what's going to be in the third book, you have no idea what the stuff that's in this book is plot relevant at all. But it's basically also, again, more, she isn't as free from the abuse as the adults around her thought she was. And this book is, again, more about getting more out of that abuse mindset. And yeah, it's funny thing about the series, this trilogy specifically, because it so happens a very big world, as the books get further along, I like them less. The first one is my favorite. This one I like, but it's okay, it's fine. And then the third one's my least favorite, though that's because it has a lot of gore and violence. So right now I am where she is. I'm around 90 pages in, a little less because this part starts on page 7, so I'm actually more like 80 pages in. And she is she's just about to go and start riding on the circuit with her mentor. And yeah, so I will say Mercedes LeKay's biggest flaw in these books, besides the fact that in these books, in this series, is her world building. Like, which is kind of weird to say, because she builds this incredible world that your imagination really sticks to, but because it's such an expansive world, and she began it in the 80s with this, and she's still writing it to this day, so if you read as many books in this world as I have, and I've read a lot of them, there are things that don't add up. And so reading this for the first time, it was fine, because everything in this trilogy adds up together. But then reading, like, other books, I'm like, what do I count as canon? Because sometimes, there are things that, like, in other books don't match up to this, or this doesn't match up to those books. Like, I'm like, what do I count as canon? Sometimes it's easier when it's like a thing that appears once in this book, and in other books it's different, but in old other books it's different, or, but sometimes it's like it only appears in a few places, and each time it's different, so what do I count as canon? So that is a little annoying to me as someone who really does remember details a lot. So that is everything. I'm probably not going to read any more tonight. So, I might read a picture book, but I'm not. So I'm just going to say we're ending the vlog here. So I'm going to tell you where I got up to and everything. So I didn't read all of this. I read like over 250 pages of this, and I finished it. Then I read 81 pages of this to start it. In What If 2, I read 206 pages. In Unseen Magic, I read 189 pages. In A Mimicking of Known Successes, I read 125 pages. And in Sorceress Comes to Call, I listened to... Loading. 1 hour, 40 minutes, and 46 seconds.